12 kilometres of traffic chaos crawling its way towards Brisbane. A morning commuter's nightmare created by 3 poles and 1 person.
G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. And here we go with the next round of the Manufacturers series for 2021. And we are at a combination that I really don't know why this combination is a thing, because the track is about as far away suited to Group 3 as you can possibly get in this game. Pretty much apart from Horse Thief Mile. We're at the Tsukuba circuit in Group 3 and we're going for 37 laps, and it's a major strategy race. We're going to see exactly how we manage to get a handle on it. Hopefully it's decently, but we're just going to go on qualifying really quickly. It's like a 52-second lap here, so qualifying is so important. I can't even stress how important qualifying is. You have to nail it, because if you're a 10th off, that may be 5 or 6 positions just separated by 1/10. Because the lap is so short, there's less and less opportunities for people with skill gaps to sort of differentiate and extend the gaps between the cars. On a 3-minute lap, somebody that's a quarter of a tenth off the pace through every corner, that gap between those two drivers are going to get ever so bigger as the lap goes on. But because there's only 52 seconds worth on this track, the skill gaps, the lap times are so much slimmer between players with different skill levels. But we're going to finish up the qualifying laps through the 9th turn on this circuit, and we're going to head towards the line. It's a 52.6. That's really not good enough, to be honest. And we're going to go out for a second qualifying run. Plenty of time to actually get a couple of qualifying laps in. We're going to fast forward towards this first sector split, a quarter of a tenth up through the first corner, and we're going to head through the rest of the lap and see the second sector split, nearly 2 tenths up through the second sector split, and heading up through the final turn here across the line. We've managed to actually improve our time, only losing maybe 0.15 of a second, or 0.015 of a second through the final couple of corners of that previous lap, and improving to a 52.5. This first sector split on this second and final qualifying run here is not as good. We're about 15 hundredths of a second down on that particular lap. Is that right? No, it's going to be 15 thousandths of a second down, and we're 93 milliseconds down on this particular sector split now. So this lap is no good because we have extended this qualifying run, so we do have some tyre wear in here now. It becomes more and more difficult to try and get a faster lap time in on your second flying lap of your run, because your tyre wear is setting in. So this one is no improvement, unfortunately. Actually, it is an improvement. Oh my goodness, we managed to absolutely pull the third sector out of the bag and recover all of our time loss and gained 3 thousandths of a second. I mean, I got really excited there, but it didn't even improve our position. Unfortunately, qualifying in 15th. Of course, that's such a tight qualifying, such a tight grid there. We're like half a second off the lead, maybe 6 tenths off, and we're 15th. No good. But as for now, let's just enjoy the Manufacturer Series introduction. Lovely as always, and we meet ourselves on the grid. We see up on the top 2 a couple of MR cars, so the MR cars are going to be the cars to have around this track. A lovely small handling circuit. The MR cars are going to have an absolute field day here. So given that the Supra here is very much it's good at high speed cornering, to be fair. It's decent in a straight line, but it's very unstable on the exits of slower turns, of which there are 3 here where you dip down into first gear if you wish. So this track is really not suited to the Supra, so I basically jumped in just hoping just with hopes to have a decent race. Straight off the bat, I get overtaken by this McLaren F1. I try to defend it a little bit, but he's got his nose up the inside, and he's just made an absolute send and a half into turn 1 in the McLaren F1. So even though that's an MR car, it's much more suited to powered tracks than it is a handling track. However, he seems to be making very quick work of all these drivers, having overtaken 2 people in basically 2 real corners. There's actually 4, turn 2 and 3, however you take flat out. But anyway, I didn't really, as I was saying, I didn't expect to have very good races at all. I knew this was going to be a dropped round, but I thought, maybe there's an okay result to be had if I can get the strategy right, because my goodness, the strategy, we know a massive problem with this game recently, or actually not everyone agrees with me, but I think it's a huge problem. All the races have now been neutered because the pit losses have been extended. I think it was at the end of last year, they got extended to like 20-30 seconds at some tracks. So all the racing has been neutered because everyone's trying to minimise the pit stops, which means you now do a load of no stops where traditionally a one stop might have been the case, and you only do a one stop really if the tyre wear is low enough for the extra laps on the softer tyre is there to make up that pit loss. It's really hampered the racing in my opinion, but for some reason, Tsukuba's one of the very few tracks where the pit loss is not an issue. There's no real problem with the pit loss here. It's like 10 seconds and you're in your pit box, as opposed to like Laguna Seca. It's like 27 before you reach your pit box. So this race has a load of strategies available. You can do a 2-stop, you can do a 3-stop even, and we're going to try the 2-stop because in control testing that Mistah MCA did, the 2-stop and the 3-stop were very, very similar. However, the risk with the 3-stop is that you get stuck in traffic on that extra pit stop that you do. So I thought, well, I'm going to go for the 2-stop and try and keep track position, because I know how difficult it is to overtake here at Tsukuba, and I can't imagine in Group 3 here being any different. So I went for the 2-stop, which means a long hard stint, a long medium stint, and a long soft stint. Max out your soft stint, which is about 12-13 laps, max out your medium stint, which I think is like 15-16-17 laps, and then whatever that remainder is on your hards, and your hards even do get a little bit worn. I don't even quite remember, because this race was done 2 weeks ago, I think. Apologies for the delay that has happened trying to get this to you, but I think I have at least one more video. I do have a second video, it's only about 10 minutes long. I might release that to experiment with some watch time on the shorter video. Maybe I might do that actually. So I think I have 2 more videos from this combination over the coming days. But anyway, we'll just focus on this particular race, as the car behind Show 214 and driving the Honda NSX has caught up a lot of ground as we're getting deep into our hard tyre stint. We started 15th, so I started on hardest tyre, getting it out of the way, and everyone around me actually pitted going for the 3-stop, so it left me with clean air. However, coming through this move here, the Honda just bumps me wide trying to get past, so I don't really return the courtesy there and give him a load of space on the exit of turn 4 either. So I would say we're even now, and Shui, I'm going to call him Show, has lost a lot of time there trying to go for that move. Whether it was accidental or not, he bumped me very, very deep into the corner. He punted me essentially, and I understand 100% how frustrating it would have been for him to be stuck behind me, because clearly I'm very slow at the moment on my worn hard stint coming towards the closing stages of it. It is very frustrating, I know, but I'm entitled to be where I am on the strategy that I am. It's up to the other car to get past cleanly, and it is possible, as I've found out. I'm going to skip ahead now towards lap 9, where I think this is actually my in-lap, and Show is caught right up to the back of me again. Let's see if he goes for this move again. He does. He does give me a bit of a bump, a second bump as well, but I managed to hold this position here, and this is my in-lap now, so I'm just going to be looking to try and keep ahead of him until we get to the pit entry, which is another couple of corners away, as we're rounding through turn 6 into turn 7 into the braking for turn 8. It gets very awkward actually. I don't quite notice Show's on the outside, and we make some side-to-side contact, and he grazes on the grass. That is no good. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened when the race happened. I just looked down on the radar and saw him spinning out, and I was like, oh my goodness, what happened there? And unfortunately, afterwards, in the analysis part of this, I mean, in fact, look at this pit loss, by the way. It's only like 9 seconds before we get into our pit box. But anyway, I looked on the radar after, and it's like I ran wide through turn 6 and turn 7, and he sort of stuck his nose up, and I didn't quite notice, and went back to the left to take a racing line through the second to last turn, and unfortunately he was there, and the Honda catches the grass. Little bit unfortunate, and I didn't quite even notice in the race what happened, otherwise I probably would have given it back, but unfortunately we did continue on here. So that is the end of our hard stint anyway. We've come into the pits for our medium tyre now. We're still towards the back of the field, and my main thing that I was worried about is traffic, and that's where today's video title comes from. A major traffic jam at this track, and that is honestly a major problem with this combination. I mean, every combination has its pros and cons. One of the cons here is the traffic issue, because what you've got to do is try and maximise your own strategy as much as you can, but everyone else is trying to do the same. And if you happen to come out on your soft tyre, for example, behind someone that's doing their stint on hard, you know, it makes it very difficult. And that's kind of what's happened here. I've come out on my medium tyres, so the middle tyre compound, and we're getting past these couple of cars that we've managed to come out behind as we've come out of the pit. So we get past the Mercedes at turn 1 on lap 11, and we've still got this Ferrari. I think the Ferrari was actually a pretty strong car at this combination, so he gets a lot of grip on the exits of all these turns there, because he's got that rear engine in the back of the Ferrari helping push the rear tyres into the road. However, it does make corners, or makes sort of the changes of direction a little bit more difficult, because you've got the momentum and the weight of the engine in the back of the car helping the car rotate and oversteer. But we weren't quite able to get past Sauber in that Ferrari. We managed to just drop back a little bit. However, we are going to round out through the final turn, because we do have the issue of people coming out of the pits and giving us traffic related issues, and that's exactly what's happened here. However, we slot in ahead of Corey Hack driving the Mercedes, and Renko driving the RX Vision comes out ahead of Sauber. So that's actually not too bad. Still a little bit of an air gap between myself and Sauber. The air gap is big enough so that I'm not getting held up too much. So I'm able to keep running my pace on these medium tyres, and we're just going to try and look to get to basically the end of the stint. Fuel is no issue here, so there's no real worries here. But I think unfortunately what's happening here is Sauber's getting held up slightly by Renko, who's just come out of the pits. I've got no idea what tyre compound he's on, and actually Sauber goes into the pit. So that was the end of his stint. So that opens me up nicely. Oh dear, that sounds very not safe for work. That opens my I don't even know what to say at this point. I've just been absolutely thrown off by how awkward that statement I just said is. The gap ahead has opened up. It's given me a lovely big air gap to try and continue to run my pace, and we do exactly do that coming in towards the final turn. However, the yellow flag's out, so this gives me a nice opportunity to try and gain a position in my strategy here. It actually doesn't appear to be going too well. I'm still in 14th. However, we round the final turn to find Kumo has made a bit of an error, and unfortunately for me, he's just recovering from that error right in front of me, and he gets a load of oversteer. So we're now right on the back of him. We're now going to get held up, because I'm assuming he's either going to have overheating tyres or dirty tyres coming in to turn 4. It's so awkward. I'm a lot faster on the apex part of that corner, but I'm not able to get past because there was no space on the inside to try and get an overlap on the Ferrari, and I'm now stuck in a little bit of dirty air. I run wide through turn 6. Coming into turn 7, I've got 2 cars directly behind me running side by side on the exit of turn 8 now, trying to get the power down, and I think we're just about recovered from that little bit of an awkward moment there. And looking up on the laps remaining, we're on 17 out of 37, so what's that, still 20 laps to go. I've got about 8 laps still to go on this medium tyre stint, so I've got a long old stint on these medium tyres, and my grip is going to be dropping off more and more. And you can see on the mini-map up ahead, I'm stuck right bang in the middle of probably the peloton on this race. There's about 3 cars behind me, 3 cars behind me. I think I said behind twice, didn't I? 3 cars ahead, 3 cars behind, so stuck right in the middle of this major traffic jam. I think what would have been best at this stage is probably an extra stop in here to try and get out of this traffic and take advantage of some extra laps and softer tyres. So obviously this 2-stop isn't quite going exactly as I'd planned, because I planned for everyone else to perhaps be going for a 3-stop and get everyone else and get myself stuck in the traffic of everyone else doing the same strategy. I've tried to do the 2-stop to differentiate myself as we dive up the inside at turn 8. The Ferrari runs very, very wide. It gives me a nice opportunity to get the power down on the exit, and we get that move beautifully done. That is on lap 19, so you've still got a long way to go. So we're beginning to see just the problems that are arising from this combination. Load of strategies, load of different paced people on the track at the same time, traffic, people coming out of pit stops directly ahead of me, and we've now been released behind Show. Remember that incident we had at the start of the race where Show punted me, and I in turn didn't really leave any space on the exit of the corner and sort of shuffled him onto the grass. So yeah, that's a little bit awkward. We got some bad blood between us now, so it's going to make this move quite difficult indeed. But we're going to have to just try and do our best to pick our way through and try and get as cleanly past Show as possible. Of course, yes, we did have the incident, but I'm now not looking exactly to have a ding-dong battle with him now off the back in the wake of the previous incident we had. I now have to get past cleanly. I don't want to punt him off now, and you know, my excuse for that would be, well, he punted me. We're even because I returned my favour directly after he punted me. We give him a little bump through the final turn. Obviously, he's not taking the most optimal amount of speed through there. We were looking up the inside, however, he goes to cover it. We're going to look around the outside. However, he just leaves me no space. Look at that. No space left, and Corey Hack takes full advantage of that. And he now slots in between myself and Show, so I'm trying to get past, however Corey's trying to get past Show as well. Massive Constantina through turn 4, and now I've got the Beetle looking around the outside. I managed to just get the power down and shuffle the Beetle out just wide enough to try and keep this position. So we're falling back into the clutches of the rest of the pack, who I assumed have now stopped the extra time and have caught back up to our slower runners. So this race is really not going well. I'm really struggling to gain positions. I've still got a pit stop to go. However, Show just moves off to the right-hand side to take the pit entry here at Tsukuba. He's going in for one of his stops. So he was on the medium tyre too. However, he's probably going for extra stops because that's quite a strange lap to pit in if you're doing a 2-stop with the medium, hard and soft tyres. But we're now behind Corey, which I didn't really want to be, and I've got another car on the inside of the exit of turn 1. It's another Ferrari, actually it's the same Ferrari of Sauber 55 with the Uralkali Haas F1 team liveried Ferrari there, making his way through. Again, no idea what tyre compound, so this kind of race actually makes commentary quite difficult because I've got no idea what strategy these guys are on. However, I'm going to assume at this point, given by the fact that Sauber and Corey have both driven away from me a little bit, that they've got a lot more grip than me, so they're either going to be on a softer tyre or a newer tyre than me. I would not suggest that they're probably on this hard tyre because that tyre is slower pretty much any day of the week. But we've still got a load of pressure from Hyper LS behind. The 2 cars up ahead are driven away and are having their own little battle, which isn't so much of an issue for me because that's opened up the space ahead of me to try and focus on getting my laps as clean and as quick as possible. However, Hyper looks for the move up the inside, but kind of makes a hash of the braking. Doesn't quite get the car up the inside far enough to try and warrant me giving any space for that move to in fact get completed. So we're still defending ourselves in 14th, trying our best to just lap as quick as possible. That's all I can do, lap as quick as possible and not get stuck in traffic. Skip ahead to lap 24, where John Tita, driving that McLaren F1, is now falling back out of the pack up ahead. So I'm assuming that his strategy was softer tyres at the start to get a load of overtakes done, and then harder tyres as the race goes on, as the gaps open up to try and minimise the amount of positions John loses on those harder tyres. Corey Hack goes in, and we're going to see exactly where we come out. So he was, you know, a little bit ahead of me, maybe about a second ahead of me on the entry of the pits. And we'll see exactly where I come out, because I think this is my in-lap now, because I'm on lap 25 out of 37. That's about 12 laps to go at the end of this one. So I think this is going to be the end of my medium stint and the start of my 12-lap long soft tyre stint, because that's about the amount of time those soft tyres last before they really begin to shred themselves into the ether. But we're coming through this in-lap now. It's so difficult to try and get the car to do exactly what you want because the track is so narrow. There's so many corners that are coming up thick and fast. This is the longest straight on the circuit. I mean, it's only 445 metres long. It's really not a long straight at all. However, the only thing that is really a problem is some dirty air. There's no real slipstream benefits at this track. We come into the pits at the end of the lap, exactly as I said, switch over to the soft tyres, and we'll see exactly where we come out of the pits, because this is our final stop. I'd really like to jump some cars here and try and make up some positions, because this race has really been a very, very slog, a big slog in fact. So Gonta gets himself through, Hyper LS gets himself through, and that is Corey Hack. No, it's Puka Puka Kumo. I've got no idea where Corey Hack is, I'm sorry to report, but the main thing we're going to talk about here is the traffic that I've come out in. So this is a major issue. I've done all my hard tyre stints. I've lost a load of time at the start of the race on my harder tyres. I've now come out on my softer tyre. This is where I'm going to try and gain a lot of the time back. But unfortunately, I'm now hampered by these slower cars. So I'm the fastest I'm ever going to be at the end of the race with the little amount of fuel that I've got, the smallest possible amount of fuel I can have on the softest possible tyre compound. You know, this makes it very difficult for me to try and sort of get my time, you know, gain some time back, because I'm stuck behind these cars. I've got to try and dispatch these cars as quick as possible. Look around the outside, almost of both of them. I get cleanly around the outside of the Viper, almost around the outside of the Beetle, who struggles to leave me a full car width on the exit there, and that, honestly, probably not his fault. It will be very, very hard to try and put a car exactly where you want, especially at the end of the race, especially if that Beetle is on the harder tyre and at turn 1 with exits so tight that it is. So we are still fighting to try and get past this Beetle. I got no idea where Corey Hack is. I actually have a slight suspicion he may be up in that pack just ahead of Hyper, and I'm going to be falling off the back of that pack now because I'm stuck behind Gonta and I'm now stuck behind Hyper. But coming through the final turn now, Hyper runs very wide. It's going to give him a nice run out onto the straight, but I'm hoping to get the power down and the grip advantage as well. And I'm right on the back of Hyper at this point. He doesn't defend turn 1, so I'm going to send it down the inside at this point. On the soft tyres, I get the car stopped and rotated and the power down very, very cleanly with the brand new soft tyres that I've got at the moment. I'm up in 15th, which is exactly where I qualified, so this race has really gone nowhere. And it's just, yeah, look, this race is so difficult because everyone has so many stops to do, everyone has so many stints at different times. It makes it really, really hard on your own to try and pick the best strategy. So basically now that we've been opened up, now that we've been released into some clear air, we've just got to do our best to try and lap as quick as I possibly can, because I've got these soft tyres under me to use now. We're going to see exactly what this lap is, because you may have noticed the second sector split, I was nearly 5/10 up, and then we're going to round the final turn across the line. Look at that, nearly 6/10 up, a 52.7. It took us ages to catch up to the next car. We're on lap 34 now, and we're still in 15th. Nobody else from ahead has pitted, and we're still stuck in 15th towards the end of the race. The only last bit of hope that I have is that any people on the 3-stop are still yet to pit for their single lap long hard tyre stint on the end of lap 36. So we'll see how that goes. But unfortunately for me again, I've caught up to the back of Show, who we once again had that incident with towards the start of the race. So I'm really struggling to think that Show is going to leave me sort of adequate space to get a move done. So I'm really going to have to be crafty with where I position my car, and what really doesn't help is the level of oversteer that I'm now getting out of turn 5, the 90-degree right-hander midway through the lap. Show comes down for his apex. I mean, I think we're obviously faster than him. We've caught up to him out the back of this pack now, so we are obviously faster. It's just a matter of getting past, and this is kind of part of where I hope my strategy would really prove to be a good one, because I thought that I could get some track position on some of the 3-stoppers and just hold everyone up. But unfortunately, I think everyone from ahead on the 3-stoppers, we give him a bump into turn 1, and that is no good. We're going to have to make sure he is able to keep that position, because even though we have some history in this race, my driving standards have not dropped. Unless someone deserves it, I'm still going to be going for some the cleanest moves as possible, and if I make a bump like that, I'm not going to be getting my way past them, because that's not a fair overtake. So still, we're going to be looking to get our way past. But I think what actually happened in this race is some of the 3-stoppers from up ahead, you know, were pitting more frequently than me and brought themselves closer to where I was trying to perform my 2-stop, so I was getting stuck behind some of the 3-stoppers who have pitted like maybe an extra time than I have, getting, you know, pulling them further back in the race. I mean, they'll make all their time back, of course, from when everyone else ahead goes for their extra stops. So I think that's what's happened here, because I've found myself up in 14th. I think one person did pit for their hard tyres. I was in 15th. Yellow flag's out, so perhaps there's another position to be gained. And in fact, looking on the mini-map, someone's lost it on the exit of turn 4 here, and I'm still trying to get myself past Show. I'm trying to go very, very offensive at this point, but I get too much oversteer out of turn 4, and that really ruins my last overtaking opportunity, as whoever caused that yellow flag is now recovered, and we've still managed to keep ourselves in 14th. I was hoping to go for the move at the final turn if I was close enough, but unfortunately the oversteer out of turn 4 has really hampered any attempt that I may possibly have at trying to get a move done on show. And coming into the final turn, which is a long right-hand sweeper, there's really no way to get the overtake done unless you're close enough to sort of send it up the inside under braking. But I was in no universe was I close enough to go for the move there. So unfortunately for me, I only finish in 14th. It's such a difficult race, this one, because I qualified 15th, finished 14th, only did 2 stops. I really am beginning to think that 2 main factors really held up my progress in that race, and it was in fact the traffic was one of them, because I was coming out in traffic on both my pit stops, which was no good. I think I was getting stuck behind some of the 3 stoppers that had fallen back due to their extra and more frequent stops. So they will make their times back, as I previously said. And number 2, I think the extended medium tyre and extended hard tyre stint just really lost me a lot of time, too much time to make the time gain back even feasible on the soft tyre. So I think the most optimal strategy for this race is the 3-stop. If you want good track position, or actually sorry, that's not right. If you want good track position, you want to minimise your stops. But if you want minimal time loss on track, it's probably the 3-stop, because on the 3-stop you do 12 laps on the soft, 12 laps on the soft, 12 laps on the medium, 1 lap on the hard. So you really minimise the hard stint, you really minimise the medium stint as much as you can by extending the soft, by having an extra soft stint in there. And I think, I will say now, I actually did experiment with the 3-stop in my 3rd slot. I think the next video, the little 10-minute long one, is my 2nd slot, which I guess you'll see how that goes if I do decide to release it. But the 3rd slot that I did on this night, I tried a 3-stop, and I guess you'll have to wait to see exactly how I did on that. But anyway, that's Tsukuba. It's really not suited to the Supra, so I didn't expect too much. So I'm not really that gutted by getting such a poor result in that race. But I think it's good to just demonstrate exactly how difficult that particular combination is, and just how that race appeals to such a niche level of manufacturers. You know, there's such a slim level, such a slim sort of spread of manufacturers that can actually do well at that particular combination. It's pretty much all the MR cars and all the cars that are good on tyre wear. So, and the Supra, of course, is not an MR car, so it doesn't go well in all the corners, and it's not that great with tyre wear. So, you know, it makes that race very difficult for me. But I thought I'd give it a go, and I guess the racing, it's kind of interesting, although it was held up a lot. Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling because I could keep going, honestly, so I'm going to round out this video right here. So do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.